Happy Pride Month. This is the Pride Month episode of B.Y.O.B. And we'll be talking about the very, very queer aspects of Eve and the Faders.
Yeah, we wanted to kind of lift up queer characters of color. And in this story, you have the title character, Eve, obviously is not straight. You have AJ, that's another central character in the story, who's also, well, I guess she just defines herself as a lesbian. And then you have Zoe, who is bi, and then you have Zoe's partner, who could be bi.
We don't know.
It could also be,
doesn't really matter at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and I think what I like about this in the Even the Fader story is kind of where there's not a lot of drama around their relationships, especially Eve's central relationship. It's kind of a polyamorous relationship also.
Well, it is a polyamorous relationship, and Eve makes a point to say that a couple of occasions, actually, just in case readers are unaware that she is in a polyamorous relationship. She's very full of herself in this way.
Although I do like the fact that like some of our readers, especially our Midwestern readers, are like, oh my God, it's so steamy, and they kind of added a lot because I don't think we alluded to things, and kind of Zoe is kind of like she keeps things very sexual in her encounters with Eve, but we didn't like go into detail.
Yeah, so I made a point actually to make this central relationship a polyamorous relationship, and one that is not dramatic and full of a whole bunch of chaos and so forth that we're used to seeing when we see polyamorous relationships, or thruples, as they are sometimes very weirdly called, represented in other books and TV.
What's wrong with thruples?
It's just thruple. I mean, come on. Right?
They add for us a
quadruple. It makes no sense. It
and
just
then
doesn't
a 5 quintuple.
I would hope that we never get to the point where we ever say quintuple. But nonetheless,
hey, 2030 could be crazy.
I mean, if 2020 and 2021 are any indication. But nonetheless, made a point to make this polyamorous relationship, that is the central relationship of the book, non-dramatic and very sort of a mature adult relationship without all the, I mean, not that mature adult relationships don't have their drama and their chaos, but we see enough of that in real life. This is fantasy. Let's escape from a little bit of that.
Yeah, and I think also what kind of, I didn't know until I started kind of this writing journey myself about kind of how some authors who might not be part of the LGBT community themselves, but they write that character into their story. Two things that happen: they make that person very tragic, and then they kill off that character if it's kind of like an action story or something oriented like that. And we didn't do that in this story, because Eve's not, her relationship is not kind of the driving motivation of the story. I mean, it's part of the story and a part of the layers of a character, but it's kind of not like
part of why she does what she does.
Yeah,
it's not all of it.
But it's not like the whole story is around her being in this polyamorous relationship.
Or her being bisexual or queer. It's a part of her identity, just like being Black or biracial in her case is a part of her identity. It's just who she is, part of who she is. It's not the driving force of what she does in her life necessarily.
Yeah, and I don't think, I don't think you entered this and I entered this was kind of like this agenda to push or anything like that. I think we just kind of wanted to create characters who are dynamic, interesting, and instead of kind of making the relationship the drama, it's all the other shit outside our relationship.
I was pushing the gay agenda. I'm gonna be real.
You want to destroy America.
I do want to destroy America. This is absolutely
everything we stand for.
So exactly. So look, as a queer Black woman, who is obviously in a relationship that is identified by the outside world as a heterosexual one, I find it very important to uplift bisexual Black women characters in all the stories I write. So Eve being bisexual or queer, Landrian in my first book being a bisexual Black woman character. I just find it very important to uplift queer Black women characters because we're rarely ever heroes in the story. We're rarely ever superheroes for sure.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting is their kind of the long history of sci-fi and fantasy. If we talk about like mainstream comic books and superheroes, in the comic book world, there are some, but they're not central characters, and they're only like alluded to. So like recent history that was part of the sci-fi fantasy realm that was kind of unapologetically queer was Sense8.
He got really obsessed with Sense8 pretty much immediately.
It grew on her after 3 episodes, but then Berneta became a fan. And I guess, years later after the show, it was unceremoniously canceled in 2018.
They canceled it during Pride Month. Just so, I mean, they canceled the gayest show or the queerest show on Netflix, and maybe just generally of all time, besides like the L Word or Queer as Folk. They canceled it during Pride Month.
Yeah, but one of the things about Sense8 is it has a strong cult following, and it meant a lot to a lot of people, whether folks were whatever the LGBTQ community they were part of, they felt included. And it was that was unapologetic about it, and also that there were characters of color that were dynamic, and their story wasn't around them being like, oh, I'm Black, oh, I'm queer. They happen to be all trans. Like, those are important stories in Sense8, but that was not the main story. The main story is about these folks connecting in this unapologetic empathy. And with Eve and the Faders, we weren't copying that, obviously, but we were kind of the whole relationship that Eve has, and relationships, because she has multiple relationships in this story. And then throughout the Faders and Alpha series, as we will grow this universe, it's not a bunch of drama. It's just like, this is Eve, and this is who she is, and she's a grown woman.
And this actually brings me to something else about Eve's character. She has multiple relationships, you say. So there's this thing that I have noticed in a lot of queer literature and in the queer community in terms of what we expect from characters. We expect these sort of representational, respectable characters. Oh, if it's a bisexual character, they shouldn't be so sexual with everybody, because we have to be respectable and not play into certain stereotypes. Well, in my opinion, it's BS. And I made sure that Eve did not come across as this overly respectable, desexed, bisexual woman character. She has a very vibrant sex life, probably a much more vibrant than many people watching this video right now. But nonetheless, and so much that my editor was like, so there's a lot of sexual, things between Eve and Zoe. And basically, my response was, yeah, sure. That's exactly the point. I don't want her to be desexed. I don't want these respectability politics dynamics to common sense.
Yeah, she's kind of like a Black girl version of Shane from the L Word that everybody's kind of drawn to, men and women.
That's flattering. I like that one. Yeah. That's a good one.
She got a lot of swag. And at the
Let's
same
hope
time,
Catherine Monique will eventually watch this and get the shout out and actually read the book. We'll see.
Please, yeah. And if you do, shout it out on your social media. We love you. But and I think also making these characters, queer, people of color, is not that much representation in the mainstream kind of sci-fi realm or fantasy realm. And it's kind of weird because you can have worlds like Avatar, you can build a series like Harry Potter, or
you can have wizards, fairies, goblins, but for some reason
aliens.
The line is drawn at having queer superheroes, Black superheroes.
Yeah, we saw the backlash with our boy from the Star Wars, the new Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
When people thought that he was going to be the lead character and the hero, which they kind of made him a side character, and people were still pissed off. So like, you can have a world where aliens and the dark side and Jedi Knights and all this stuff, but
gay is a bridge too far.
Gay or Black is a bridge too far to be like the hero of the character story. So we said fuck that, and we're gonna make our character not only Black but also like queer as fuck and polyamorous.
And she's not the only one. Some characters that become central later on in the story, Niles and Samuel as well. And we'll actually be sharing a short story with everybody soon about Niles and Samuel and their relationship post the events of Eve and the Faders. So, my goal here is to create a story that really displays characters that we don't usually see represented in the realm of fantasy and superhero fiction or any of that. Right?
Yeah, and that's the goal. So we hope you enjoy it, and to all the readers who have read it, spread the word far and wide. And my mom loved it, so you all should love it. And maybe she just said that because she's my mom, but no, she really liked it. So
I think she liked it. Yeah.
So happy Pride, and drink on and read more.